So, who are you?
Who am I?
Yeah, for anybody that doesn't know, we didn't really introduce you.
Yeah, I don't know how you do these things. Usually you get on with your sultry sex voice and
Are you saying
introduce
this
it.
is not sultry?
This is far more normal. You know, if I was Emily, I'd go, hey guys, so this is Emily. Thanks for tuning in to the Empowered podcast.
You don't even know the name of the show.
I don't.
So do I need to do the show's intro to welcome you onto the show?
I think that's appropriate.
All right, everyone. Welcome back to Embody Radio, the premier podcast for high-performing humans looking to truly embody their happiest, healthiest, highest selves. Today we have my biggest hater and my biggest fan on the show.
That is me, everybody. I'm Chris. I'm M's boyfriend. Who am I? I'm just a guy. I'm just a guy with a lot of interests, a lot of things to talk about, to think about. I like to have lengthy discussion, which is why I think that she and I work, because we have to talk about everything, which is good. I think that, dialogue, especially respectful and diversified dialogue is how we become better people. Or at least I should say dialogue and comprehension is how we become better people. But yeah, no, I'm just a chill guy with a lot of interests. I like Harry Potter. I like Star Wars. I love sports. I grew up playing football, basketball, baseball. Played football in college. But I also, play Halo and watch Dragon Ball Z. So I can talk about everything from country music, EDM, to old school hip hop. And I think that makes me cooler than the rest of you. I'm sorry, did I say something?
So, you're my boyfriend. Are you a hologram? Are you real?
I wish I was a hologram.
Are you a paid actor?
I mean, define paid. No, guys, I'm real. I actually like this person. So
you're doing this on purpose.
Yeah, I am choosing to be here. Blink. If anyone's watching, I'm blinking both eyes, or winking in both eyes. I guess I should say both eyes would just be a blink. Yeah, no, I mean, Em and I actually found each other at a pretty interesting time in my life.
Arguably in mine.
Yeah, arguably in yours as well. But I mean,
in different ways.
All of your life's interesting because, you just think you're better than everyone, and it's always interesting. But,
Jesus Christ.
No, I was relatively fresh out of a relationship.
I was going to say, I wouldn't define that as fresh.
It was relative.
Yeah.
I mean, well, as a person who didn't date, so, I mean, of course, for
Fair
you,
enough.
I would say relatively fresh for just my experience in a time when I was actually actively trying to make sure that no woman got attached to me. So the irony of it is I was very open and honest and my most authentic self when we connected, and I did that as a way to kind of temper expectations for people when they came in, make sure that when they came in, they knew, like, okay, like, this guy's kind of cute, he's funny, he's down to sit and talk and hang out and stuff like that, but obviously he's in a wobbly place, definitely not stable enough for two of us to stand on. So they kept their own guards, and it was kind of like a unspoken contract that, if you expect certain things from me, you'll be good. If you go beyond that, chances are you'll get, let down. So in that transparency, it was just very, very well received and responded to by Emily. And so, yeah, it was one of those things that just kind of worked out unintentionally, which was super dope because I feel like the best things usually do that.
It's such a stupid cliche, isn't it? They're like, oh, when you're not looking for it, or that's when you find it. Da 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 da. And that's definitely what happened.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think that anytime you try to force something, not just relationships, jobs, friendships, whatever, like if you try to force your will on it, chances are you're overlooking the little things. So it's not going to work. It's not going to happen. But I think when you step back and allow yourself to kind of be at peace with just doing the day by day things. At that point in time, I was just working on myself. I was just
Mm-hmm.
writing, I was reading, I was investing in time with my friends and time with self. The Harry Potter game had released. I was playing that nightly, traveling, really just investing in relationships that I hadn't had opportunities to invest in, just due to lack of time and ability. And so all the right things, I think, were kind of feeding my energy, my space, and what I wanted to do. And I think success in anything, relationships, business, um, comes from a person doing all the little right things all the time, and then a little bit of luck, right? Just a chance interaction here, a chance customer, a chance conversation, and you still showing up in that like eager, authentic version of you that you've been curating over the time being. And it's like, oh, the right person saw what had been being worked on for that time being there. Like if you're a barber, if you're a coach, if you're, a salesman of any aspect, like you show up every single day and you cut everyone's hair exactly the same. And then one day Barack Obama sits in your chair and you cut his hair and he's like, fuck yeah, bro, I need you to, come to Hawaii with me and go here with me and go. All of a sudden your life's different, but you
Mm-hmm.
didn't do anything any differently. You just kept showing up because you were focusing on showing up perfectly every single day versus like, I need to find better clientele. I need to
Mm-hmm.
put myself in a better space or live in a different space so I can meet more people. And you were focusing on all the big picture shit as opposed to just perfecting the things that you could control.
Yeah, it's like chaos and order. Like, I think people focus so much on how do I either avoid or create chaos, right? Because like chaos could be the bad thing where it's like deleterious chaos, or it could be like the good thing in that it's getting that person to sit down in your chair. Like they focus on how do I either create or prevent that from happening versus focusing on how do I maintain order
Mm-hmm.
and let the chaos happen the way that chaos does.
Yeah. I mean, that's Emily's really like pretty magical way of saying like control the controllables, right? For us lay people out there.
Shut the fuck up! You're so smart. You're not a layperson.
I'm a lay person. Nothing special about me. I'm not no pope.
Thank God for that.
Yep.
We have a lot more problems.
But I think that, yeah, as I've gotten older, I think when you're young, you are taught to dream. And I think that's good. I think it's good to teach kids to dream and to aspire to things even beyond comprehension of others, or beyond societal norms and what is expected. And also understand that aspiration and desire do not equate to like reception and achievement, right? Like you're not going to get the things you aspire to just because you aspire to them. It's the work in between. It's the things in between. Everything, you can literally do everything. It's just understanding that just because you want something doesn't mean that it's going to be there. And if you focus on wanting it so badly, chances of you getting it are slim, right? Just
Mm-hmm.
dreaming it so hard, yeah, versus saying, you know what, like, what can I control? Because there's very little.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's actually easier. When you simplify your life and go, hey, what can I actually control? And it's like, that's like a dozen things, bro. And all of them are things that you can do and only you can do. You can't control what anyone else around you can do. And it simplifies your life, but it also sets you up to when the chance strikes for you to get the things that you've aspired, to get the things you've desired, then, you stand in a better position to take them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I want to rewind because I think this would actually be valuable perspective. Obviously, that's why I'm asking it. I think it'd be easy to say, like, obviously very easy for me to say, like, oh, well, like, what was different about me that made it easier for you to kind of break that, like, I'm not interested in anything thing. But I think it's more interesting to ask the question of, because something had to be different in you, like, what was different in you that made you okay? Because I think a lot of people out there, like if they've gone through, whether it's a recent or just a breakup that they're still processing, and they're kind of in like the same space that you were there, where you're like, not really looking for anything serious right now, setting those boundaries, whatever. What was it that changed within you that you were like, actually, I think I'm in a place where I can open my mind, my heart, my life to something that is more serious, or maybe what I wasn't looking for before.
Yeah. So I would say it's a combination, partly of the conversation that you and I had the other day with Zach that I'll touch on, and then also with the control thing, the idea of again letting go of it has to work out the way I want it to, and dialing that back. I'm only going to do it if it works out the way that I want it to. So for those of you who don't know, for the stalkers who haven't gone so far back in my feed to see that I was, before my last girlfriend, I was engaged. She recently, well, I shouldn't say recently, I should say almost now a year ago, she got engaged. I imagine that they're probably getting married soon, which is great. Super happy for them. If they ever listen to this, love you, Maddie. Hope everything is great. You deserve happiness. You deserve all the best things in the world. I looked at a lot of, our relationship and in the end of it as something that I held like, okay, I failed, right? Like we didn't get married, right? I broke the engagement off and we did not get married. So that relationship was a failure, or things with my previous relationship did not go the way I wanted to. So that was a failure. And these are failures that I wore as my own because it's easier for me, which I think is, to me, it seems normal, but it's obviously not the norm. I think it's probably more so than norm to blame everyone else for the bad things that happen or the things that don't work out in our lives. But for me, it makes more sense to take ownership, and probably to like a toxic level. It kind of makes me, hey, like get really, really down on myself. Like, okay, like you fucked this up. You fucked that up. But then I reframed it. I reframed the things that didn't pan out the way I wanted them to as things that just were. They just are what they are. Fuck the supposed to be shit. I don't really subscribe to meant to be's and supposed to be's. They just were what they were, right? I learned what I learned from those relationships. I had the experiences, good and bad, from those relationships, and I am who I am and who I'm becoming because of those relationships. And so I was then able to reframe any new relationship without expectations, because coming into something and saying, well, this has to go the distance, otherwise it's a waste of time, or we have to get to X place, or this is a waste of time, then you kind of get in like this paralyzed space where you no longer are a risk taker. Now you're in analytics, right? You're weighing pros and cons of doing something versus just doing something because it's what you want to do. And I think that being able to convey that to you and really accept that within myself, like, hey, like we might move to Denver, and then in a year I might be like, fuck this, bro. I need to I'm like, either fuck the city, I don't like the city, or hey, me and M aren't working out, I gotta bounce. Like accepting that as a reality, accepting the overarching cliche of everything ends, whether it ends in death or in a pre-death separation of sorts. Really allowed me to say, you know what, this feels good. This feels right. I feel understood, heard. My energy feels held here. I feel like someone is really trying to get to know me and give me the things that I want. I was like, all right, sweet. Then like, what is there to lose, right? I might love this for an hour. I might love it for 100 years, but I'm not worried about that. So I think that's probably like the overarching thing. Letting go of that, like it has to be, or just complete expectation, I think is a big piece in life and in connection. And also I think that, everyone would like to say there's something special about that person that makes them, oh, I wanted to change because they were just, he was just, she was just. And M, to her credit, has obviously like really done a lot of work on herself. As a person who's been through a lot, she's been through a lot. So her being able to hear the things that I had been through and really hold space for those, even if some of those conversations were uncomfortable, because maybe like they weren't necessarily what you want to hear. Like, you don't want to hear some of the things that I feel, which maybe we go into, maybe we don't. I think that was super important, obviously. So that's the uniqueness of the connection. But as people, I think we hold core values and what we're looking for in everybody. So like your friends are probably similar in an aspect. Your past relationships are probably similar in an aspect. Like whether you want to say it or not, if you look at the fine tuning of your current partner and your past partner, I bet you find them to be more alike than different. Otherwise, you're a completely different person, and there's ownership for you being a different person, not for you somehow like getting better or finding someone who's better or whatever. I don't really believe in that. Just because you have a really good relationship now and the past relationship was not that great doesn't mean that those people can't be very alike. It's just who you were when you were together. I stopped focusing on who the other person was and what I wanted them to be and what they should be, whether it was potential or it was promise. It was all about, you know what? I can't control that. I can't tell them or even encourage them or love them into being what I can see them being for me, to themselves, to the world. And then, it's tough because I see so much in people that I love. So in those past relationships and connections, even with friends, we would bump heads because I would see like, oh, like I expect you to show up this way or that way because logically it's what made sense to me. But I think that if I'm honest, there's not a friend or a person, a past partner where I haven't thought, oh, this friend could be more of this. This partner she could be thicker. She could be more ambitious. She could be more pretty. She could do her makeup differently. He could do this. He could show up for me this way. He could be here. He could make me more of a priority. He could play video games with me more often. You always sit and you microanalyze the relationships you have because you have these desires that come up, and then you want the people who are naturally filling those buckets to be the people that continue to fill them. But I think when you focus on what you could be, like more of, okay, you know what can I be? I can be more attentive to both my own needs and the needs of those around me. I could be more affectionate. I could be more overtly reaffirming. I could be more overtly proud, I think those are things that I started to focus on, not just in relationships, but with self. And when I started to focus on my things, everyone else's things started to get put into better perspective and started to matter a little less to me because I was very happy with the work that I was doing.
That was a really good answer.
It was long. Sorry, guys.
That's why we're podcasting.
Touche.
It's not an Instagram caption.
Touche. Not 100 words or less?
No.
Okay, that's good.
But no, I think that, like, backing up a little bit, when you first said the thing to me about not placing essentially like expectations on something in order to deem it a success, that was one of I was surprisingly not uncomfortable when you first said that, but I actively felt like a way that I was thinking was being flipped on its head, and in just like a curious way, because I'd never heard anybody put it like that. And I think it would be easy to hear that and think, oh, this person's not going to try then. This person's not going to put in effort. They're not going to, do the things. They're not going to make any effort to like change and evolve in the context of a relationship, etc. But I think actually what it's shown me and what you've shown me every single day is it's just more of like the presence aspect. Is I'm just going to be present in this thing. I'm going to appreciate it, while I have it for as long as I have it. And it's also kind of a freeing mindset because it gives both people the autonomy to show up as individuals that are coming together in a thing versus white knuckle gripping the thing, aka the relationship being the thing.
Yeah. 100%. I think that I was even kind of nervous like presenting it to you because I understand how that could come off, right? It could come off in a way that, like haphazardly. He's just kind of doing things. But I think that people who live life more, let's just keep using the word haphazardly, like they see something, they do it. They want to go somewhere, they just go. And it might be looked at as reckless or, just lacking forethought or strategy or planning. But those are the doers, right? Like Steve Jobs wanted to build a fucking company, so he did it, right? Elon Musk wants to put us on the moon, on Mars rather, so he's going to do it, right? Like, I think if the people who move the needle for humanity decided to sit on their hands until they had what they felt was 100% the right way to do something,
Mm-hmm.
we would not be where we are. And so you take that and titrate it down to just us in everyday life. If I was like, wow, this girl, like she's super dope, da da da, but am I really over what I've been going through? And what does that even mean anyway? Is anyone
Mm-hmm.
ever really over, quote unquote, something? And then it's like, okay, well, am I financially ready to embark on something like this? Am I, energetically ready to give this back to somebody? And it's like on Monday and Tuesday, the answer might be yes. On Wednesday, it might be no. But then on Friday, you might be like, this is 100%. So I think that if you sit there and you were to like deliberate with the self, you would just never make a decision. Girls out there could probably, resonate with guys saying that they're talking, right? They're in the talking stage. And it's like,
Mm-hmm.
what is the talking stage? Well, the talking stage is when he's deciding if whatever you've given him is good enough for him to stick around and make you the only one. That's what it is, right? And he's deliberating because it's a twofold thing there. One, you don't want to go through the overhaul, right? You bring a person into your life and now you put them on social media, you introduce them to family, you do all these different things. And then if you don't feel the same in 30 days, you got to, kind of backtrack and remove and excise them from those spaces in your life. And so one, like that's not fun, right? Like pulling pieces back out. And two, you have to, if you want to, re-engage to the seeing stage or the dating scene with other people. You have to almost like, because no one wants someone out there going, "Hey, I'm single," but you have to like silently like let people know, like, "Hey, approach me, approach me." Like we're single. I'm not with them anymore, right? So the pictures come down off Instagram, or certain posts start going up to really illustrate, like, "Look at me in my freeness," She was shackled and now she can fly, whatever fucking captions that start going up.
I would love to have so many conversations with women about how we handle social media and breakups. Do whatever you want, girl, but
It's a good time.
mm.
It's comedy. It's girl math.
Well, but it's also like I've done it before too, and like I want to believe that I've always done it tastefully and like done my best to just like share my experience without causing harm to someone else or tarnishing the reputation of someone else. And then I'm also like maybe there's times when I didn't, and that like reflecting on that, because no matter, and like one thing I think is really unique about you that I've always appreciated is you've always spoken really positively about any of your past partners, and I think that's a rare quality. And no matter how positively or negatively I've had a relationship end, like I cared about that person
Mm-hmm.
for very deeply for X amount of time. So like thinking about the fact that like, ooh, I could have done very poorly by them by showing up in this way or, posting this in this way, like that doesn't feel good to me. No matter how painful the end was, like I don't ever want to hurt somebody. And I think if we had people in our lives or just like the self-regulation, but it's hard in those spaces, but like people in our lives to kind of check us to be like, hey, do you really want to show up like that? Like we would maybe show up like as women in breakup culture differently. And I am not, I don't take vengeance on past partners with how I'm showing up online or anything like that. Like I don't think ladies, I love you. I don't think revenge tour is healing. I don't think that's what that is at all. I think that's avoidance and displacement of your pain onto something else. And that's a whole different episode for a whole different day, but I hate seeing it. Like because it's not real healing at all.
Yeah.
And that's not me trying to be, I can guarantee somebody out there's gonna be like, that's such a pick me thing to say. And I'm like, I don't think it is though. Like it's just I want to hold myself and the women that listen to this to a higher standard and to actually encourage you to get the healing you need, not to just go on a revenge tour. And that can apply to partners, that can apply to friends, that can apply to bosses, that can apply to anything. Like going on revenge tour doesn't actually do anything for you and your energy. If anything, it just pulls it down that spiral farther and keeps you there.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I pretty much would agree with all of that. I think that I mean, guys typically do things a lot differently. We bury our pain in, the gym, other women, just positive outlets, hopefully, if we can find any. But usually there's a lack of worth that usually settles in, whether you're the one who ends the relationship or not. And so you try to find things that make you feel worthy, whether it's the attention from other people. You bury yourself in work, you have to make more money, then, I'll be happier or
That was always
whatever.
my go-to. It was
Right.
like, if I get out of a relationship, okay, I'm going to go make more money.
Right.
Like, which was not healthy either.
Well, I mean, I think this the money thing, it's one of those things that comes with, it's not just the money, right? It's the prestige, it's the status, it's the like, okay, well, sweet, like no one will be able to say that, oh, I wasn't good enough, right?
Yeah.
That they're doing better now, right? So there's like a twofold thing that plays. And I also would, as a person who's been on the receiving end of the wrath of a woman, scorned for whatever reason, right? Whether it's a breakup, it's a mistake I've made, and also a person who grew up with four sisters and a host of female cousins. Like the first close boy in my family wasn't born until I was 11, so
Damn.
it was all estrogen for me for a while. You could probably find old videos of me wearing my mom's wigs and doing my sister's cheers, because that was my only way to like connect with
Yeah.
the people around me, was to do the more feminine quote unquote things there. Um, Everyone has their process, and I encourage them to take it, right? I think that I've gotten over things, quote unquote, again, that phrase gotten over, but I've worked through things in a myriad of ways. I've been the guy that's like, you know what, I will just work really hard, and every night that I could be alone, I'm not going to be. I'm going to invite someone new over or whatever, just so that I don't have to like sit with my own thoughts or my own things about, or my own feelings about what's transpired and what it is I'm going through. But of course, like you said, when you say it's not real healing, the reason why I have like an amendment to that idea is like, it's not complete healing. It might be part of it. It might be part of your process. Is it a productive part? Who am I to say? I'm not going to comment on that. I don't think that it all depends on what your goals are. If your goal is, I would like to be able to come back as adults with this person or these people and be able to be cordial, maybe develop some level of kinship, understanding, friendship, whatever it blossoms into, then maybe a revenge tour, maybe slutting around through whatever is probably, and that is not gender specific, that is male and female, through the city is probably not the best way to try to work through and process your pain and confusion. Because I think, Carl Jung speaks to the concept of like repression of feelings, and when you try to push them down or hide from them and push them away, those very things just bubble up, they balloon into something that kind of turns a lot uglier. And you end up manifesting the things you're going through in a way that is almost opposite, right? You loved someone, something, some relationship so much so that now you publicly scorn it. And it's like, the Big Sean line, and also just a cliche that what women only say they hate you to the men that they love. Because like, how do you have such an extreme emotion about something that you don't really care about, right? So I think anyone kind of looking through the bushes can see that it's like, okay, well, you're hurt because this thing matters a lot to you, and it still does, and that's okay. You could probably work through this in a way that is a bit more conducive to your growth. And I say that as objective growth, not subjective, right? Like, you have your own process, take it. Objectively, it's not moving you forward, like you're still stuck in that cycle of like, that causes me pain, I'm going to revolt against it, right? You haven't moved beyond that space, but you can be in that space as long as you want. It's your prerogative. If you want to move forward, I think an acceptance of what has transpired, and also an acceptance of the complex emotions around it, and not feeling like you have to hate a person, hate a thing, to say, I'm over it now. I've gotten past it. I don't care about this anymore. I think is kind of the key there. I think that it's a juvenile way to try to move past something, is to hate it so much so that you convince yourself that you actually do, versus just saying, I love this thing a lot, and that is why this all sucks, because I wanted it to be something. I wanted it to work out so badly. And so in acceptance of that, you can kind of go, okay, like, this is the human piece, right? When you have those days and you wake up and you think, wow, I haven't thought of these people, that friend, this person, this past relationship in a month. And then all of a sudden, like, I just had a dream about them, or something came up, and now I'm kind of like today kind of sucks, right? Like, and I'm thinking, and then now I'm second guessing, well, am I doing the right thing? Should I be in a relationship with someone else? Should I reach out to that old friend, right? I have friends who are not currently getting along, and they'll text me and they're like, should I reach out? I'm like, if you wanna, like,
Right.
it's just because if you want to look and go, oh, well, I should be because of what perception looks like, or because of what past experience, or I guess I should say past actions, have transpired. I think that you're handicapping yourself. If you in your current space want to reach out, and you want to talk, and you want to have conversations, or you in your current space just want to, like, hey, listen, I miss this person. Not for any particular reason. I just do. Like, that's normal. That's human. And you shouldn't, like, demonize it. You shouldn't reprimand yourself for feeling those things.
Yeah. And I think this is funny. Like, I obviously have a handful of friends that are polyamorous. And so the way watching them be able to have the energetic space to love and support multiple partners, as equals, as humans, and all of that, like, it showed me a lot about, oh, you can hold as much space and energy for people in your heart as you want. And it doesn't have to mean that because I am holding space for Sally, that I have less space for Sue over here, because people have different, like, energetic capacities. So it's like, and all I see that as is like someone's capacity for holding love and how they choose to express it. So, like, in the case of, like, grieving a relationship or a friendship, it can be something where you don't necessarily want that thing back in your life in the way that it was, but you still hold the energetic space that person, that, like, and just what that meant. And I think we try, and when we do the thing where we're just like, and I've been in this place, like, where I'm like, I hate this person, I hate this thing, whatever. We think that, like, by hating it, that we're taking it out of our, like, energy body and shipping it off somewhere else. But that's not what's actually happening. It's just pushing it down, pushing it down, pushing it down, versus, like, if you can just honor and flow with the moments where you're like, yeah, like, I feel the energy of this thing today, or, like, I'm, experiencing, like you said, like, oh, I miss this person today, or, like, I'm grieving this thing today. It doesn't take away from the love that you have for me, or the love that you have for the friends that are, arguing with each other or whatever. It just means, okay, that's, like, an energy that's present, and I have the capacity to hold that, and I also still need to feel it and move through it. And that's just because I'm a person.
Yeah. No, I think that you put that really beautifully, in the way that it's just like, I mean, obviously, polyamory being one of those things that is a very extreme example of that, right?
Yeah.
Because I think that it requires a complete removal of, like, the strength of the ego, right? Like, you because that's where it comes from, right? Like, when someone cheats on someone, it's more about the person cheated on than it is about the person who has cheated on the other. Like the act of cheating, right, is not necessarily the thing so much as it is the hit that the ego takes of the person who's been cheated on. Because then you start second guessing, am I good enough? Why her? Why him? Why this? Why that? Like, what am I lacking? It's a bunch of I statements.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it has nothing to do with you.
Yeah.
As a person who has cheated, like, it has nothing to do with the person that you're in a relationship with. and everything to do with the incompleteness inside of yourself, right? That everything to do with the things that you're still battling through and developing within yourself, or even yet to see, yet to observe or confront. And it's hard to articulate that, right? When they're crying and they're in your face and going, "But why'd you do this?" And you're like, "I don't know."
I don't know.
It's not dishonesty. It's not because you don't want to share. Is truly like, okay, there's something inside of me that I have not confronted yet. It's something that is clawing at trying to be seen, something that is trying to gain some level of validation, or wants to hear that something's proud of it, or wants to see some level of reverence given to it. And so, when you sit there and you think about it that way, conceptually, the idea of polyamory, you can understand it if you can kind of set aside that your ego in a bit. It's a lot easier said than done. I think for me, though, the lesson there is when you're trying to hold space for your friends and significant others, if you truly, 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 truly want your people to be honest with you, even when the things they're being honest about will hurt your feelings, you know it, they know it, you have to be able to not just say, "Hey, yeah, like you can talk to me about it." You have to show them. Like there's a feeling when you're sharing something with somebody and you feel them receiving it through a objective, unbiased, emotionally veil, right? For me to be able to go to a friend and say, "Hey, listen, here are the things that you did yesterday that really rubbed me the wrong way, that really hurt my feelings, made me feel XYZ." And you can see if that person is hearing it as, "Wow, they're attacking me and I need to defend myself." Or, "Wow, he's sharing his experience with me and I want him to. Please tell me more about that. Tell me how this affected you, because I want to understand how you saw this and the things that transpired inside of you."
Like when a person can receive something and not make it about them.
Yeah, no, 100%. Like you can see that. You can definitely see and feel that. And when you do feel that, you're more likely to continue to share. But I will say, like, it's not like I'm just saying this like it's an easy thing. It's hard. It's really, really hard. Because if you're really honest with yourself, I said this the other day as well, if you're honest about the confrontation and whatnot that you have, when you go to express yourself to somebody and something you're going to say is about something they did or didn't do, a way they did or didn't show up, like it's that person's rebuttal. You might say, "Oh, they acted like immaturely or whatever," and sure, you can cash that as however you want, and also understand that that person's reaction is literally, in base terms, "I care about you, the one person bringing it to them. I care about you so much that I don't want you to think these things of me." Like, you're telling me that I didn't show up as a good friend, and that hurts because I love you and I want to be a good friend and I don't want you to think I'm a bad friend. You're telling me that you don't feel prioritized, and I love you and I prioritize you and I don't want you to feel that about me. So it's coming from that same place. That person just has to work on redirecting their energy. But I think when there's understanding on both sides of that, you find that Venn diagram where the overlap gets a little bit bigger than the outsides, which is what you want.
Yeah, and I saw this post the other day. I actually think it was Lee who reposted it. That was basically like, "I'm sharing my boundaries with you because I want to keep you in my life." And so it's like, if somebody's sharing with you most of the time in like a constructive resolution-based type of conversation, of like, "Hey, here's the thing that happened and here's how I felt about it. I'm talking to you about this because I want us to be in each other's lives."
Yep.
And versus like super confrontational, that whole kind of situation. But also too, and this is something that you've like watched me learn in real time and like go through in real time. I think sometimes a lot of us have a hard time being honest with the people that are super close with us about how something they did make us feel or how an interaction made us feel, because we're scared of losing them. And I can now say this on the other side of it, having had conflict with people that has brought us closer, and then having had conflict with people that it has removed their presence from my life. You would much rather have that conversation with the potential of losing someone and learn either way.
Yeah. No, 100%. I mean, if you hide your boundaries, you are assuring the demise of the relationship.
Yeah.
It will end. The relationship, the connection, the friendship, whatever it is, if you do not bring them up to the person, to the people, to the organization, whatever setting you're in, if you don't present them, eventually resentment will brew. You will meet that breaking point and you will leave. The issue is typically because you've allowed yourself to get to that breaking point, you've removed the idea of ever being able to work in that space or be with those people again because
Mm-hmm.
the resentment level is so high for you. And now you have all these negative things. But I mean, I think that like, and I say this, I mean, I have a really good friend and she sucks at setting boundaries. And you saw, she and I just had a conversation and I told her, like, dude, you got to say something. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I'm sorry, but I'm also irritated because if you're going to sit on your hands and then get upset at me for showing up a certain way, then like, that's a you problem, bro. That's not a me
Mm-hmm.
problem. It can only become a shared thing for us when you present it. But if one person is gatekeeping the knowledge of how they feel, and the other person has no idea, I'm sorry. You can go tell all your friends, your sisters, and whoever that this person did X, Y, Z to you, but it happened because of you.
Well, and did they know that they did that to you? You
Yeah.
know, like if I mean, obviously, there's things that's like if you punch me in the face, you punch me in the face. But like, there's especially with like relationships and communication, there's things that are subtleties sometimes where it could just be you existing how you exist, not knowing that it makes someone feel some type of way. That person is feeling some type of way. They describe it to somebody else. You're like, oh my God, that person's being, XYZ type of way. But if you never know that, because it's just a way that you exist, you never know that that's a problem for someone.
Yeah.
And so, like, when we're in friendships, relationships with other people, that's why honesty is such a core factor
Hmm.
in all relationships because it's like, hey, we're two different little orbs of human with different experiences, different triggers, different this, different that are intersecting orbits for a little bit. It's my responsibility to let you know if some of the fucking whatever electrons in your orbit bump up against mine in a hurtful way.
Yeah,
Because I'm the only one that can tell you that. I'm the only one that can make you aware of that.
for sure. And I think when you look at it through that lens, right? And I think, I don't know, it's something I've always kind of understood. I think just a turbulent childhood led to me needing to be a lot more observant of the people around me and what they were going through and how they processed.
It's a trauma response.
Yeah, it's just one of those things where it's like I was always very keen on how a person operated, what made them tick. As a salesman, that's how I found success was, I could relate and connect with anybody, make them feel like they were safe and they could trust me and do and buy or whatever, right? So I never lacked in that like EQ space of like understanding someone else's emotion and their tendencies, how their emotional algorithm would play out if XYZ variable was inserted.
Mm-hmm.
I also, because of a turbulent childhood, had a very matter-of-fact way of coming to a solution, right? Where I used the emotion as much as I needed and then said, hey, but this is how it is, right?
Mm-hmm.
I get that hurts your feelings, but this is what can you do about that, right? And that also comes, like you say, from trauma response and needing to process my things, not having the opportunity to really sit and sit in my emotions, but really needing to, kind of get on whatever the next step was, right? That made me sad. How do I do it? That made me, happy. What do I do to keep this going? You know, so I don't, or I haven't always allowed that space for other people to kind of hang out
Mm-hmm.
there. But for me, it was encouraging my people to process and to move forward and to go on. And to others, it was like, well, that comes off as callous. You're
Mm-hmm.
emotionless, you're heartless. And I'm like, I got the biggest emotions in this room. You guys don't know that, but that's because as a kid, I didn't have a lot of space for them.
Mm-hmm.
And also, like, I developed the things I developed for survival. And so
Mm-hmm.
they talk about, like, trying to get out of survival mode and stuff like that. But it lends itself to, like, okay, well, cool. Like, when you're sitting here and you're talking about people with narcissistic tendencies or people who take advantage or who are closed off or emotionally unavailable, opportunistic. Those things, you're not just born that way. Unless you have something chemically, imbalanced in you, you're not just born this way. These are things that people had to learn to survive their childhoods, right?
Well, yeah, narcissism is typically born out of like severe emotional or physical neglect.
Right. And so when you sit there and you look at it that way, all of a sudden there's empathy that can be had and understanding that can be had where it's like, okay, like Chris is showing up this way and I could really use him to show up this way. And it also will change the way you approach people, because if you show up a way, if Bryce shows up a way, if my dad shows up a way and it rubs me the wrong way, but I also view it as like my dad didn't really have a dad, right? Like my dad was relatively absentee. He was a provider. He was kind of more of a friend than anything, but, he was around. His dad, a fraction of what he was to me. And so when I recognized that immediately when he would say and do something, I could see it through that veil the older I got. And what happened was the response I gave was not argumentative. It was not defensive. It was, still stout. It was still concrete. It was confident, but it was not attacking him because I did not feel like he was trying to attack me.
Right.
And I think that's what happens is we sit there and we see someone else and the way they process something. It's like, oh, you're doing this to me. It's like, that's just that's just them doing.
Right.
Right. And if they don't know to do something differently because you haven't expressed that, they're going to keep doing the things that have kept them alive, right? That have helped them continue to process and get through things without shooting themselves in the mouth. So, like, when you talk about, like, oh, this person's this way or that way, well, chances are that person's this way or that way because some bad things have happened to make them this way or that way. Right.
And I think, first of all, there's obviously, like, certain people that I will extend no empathy towards, like, very, very select populations of people that do god-awful, inexplicable things. But I think in these types of scenarios, people hear someone say, and it helped me have empathy for that person. And they think that having empathy for that person that was manipulative or that was, treated them a certain way, beyond like pure abuse, right? But like they think that empathy is a free pass. Like, oh, you're giving them empathy, you're giving them a free pass. When in reality, empathy is actually just your ability to understand the experience and the motivations behind that person. That doesn't mean you're excusing the behavior. It doesn't mean you're excusing the shitty things that they've done. It just means, oh, I have some context onto why that might have taken place. Now I can adjust how I'm showing up here in my own space with this person to move forward, basically.
Yeah, I'm going to do this because you have
a little hair. That's
no, you got like
is it
fucking.
Is it doing weird things? Why does it say the camera's going to die again?
I don't know.
It says it's plugged in. Well,
you should probably plug it into the wall.
We're going to find out. We're still here.
Yeah, we're still here. So, but empathy is a big thing. I think that's the hang up and you have the division, right? Because the people who are out there saying, well, you're giving them a free pass are the people who are responding to the people who take empathy as a reason for excusing action. Who go,
or the people who take empathy and abuse it and use it to like further their agenda.
Exactly. I've seen people be understood like, oh, like, they know you had a troubled background, so they give you chance after chance and you take them because they're going to keep giving them. And then I've also seen people allow that empathy to allow people to continue to abuse a system they know that they're abusing. And so for me, empathy has always been like I understand, and also like I can still hold you accountable. We are accountable to our actions, especially once we're made aware of them, right? Once you understand that you operate or see something and, do something a certain way that maybe has a negative impact on the people in your periphery, it is on you to make that adjustment, not on them to just keep understanding and having an immense amount of empathy and giving you passes, right? Like we live in this world where we, value intention, and I think intention is really important, but I think at a certain point, there's a level of like, oh, well, they don't know any better, or they're not trying to, or, that's just them. That's just him. That's just her. They just do that. And that's like, as a person who grew up, like I grew up in public schools, went to a Catholic school for high school, and to graduate, you have to complete service hours. I spent the majority of my service hours working with a company called ATC, All Star Training Club, which is pretty much like an athletics organization that works with people who are physically and mentally just other abled. I don't necessarily say disabled because I think there's a lot of abilities that they have that, I don't have. So, so I worked with kids with Down syndrome and, severe autism, people who could not walk, people in wheelchairs, people with missing limbs. And, I had conversations with parents often, and I can't help but call back to some of those that when people would tell me, hey, yeah, like Brian really struggles with, extended physical contact, or he really struggles with taking feedback, and I need your help with working around that. It's like, okay, well, here's a person who actually has a condition, something that they have to cope with and work through every single day. And we give them this, obviously, just space to operate. And we really want to meet them where they're at because they're giving us all they can. Like Brian is giving me everything that he can. So in that, I'm going to give him everything I can. But you talk about a person who is, just for sake of conversation, like relatively healthy, normal, etc., just like meets the societal regularities. And you want to assign this like, oh, well, they're just this, we have to work around them. But like what you're saying is, I will give them everything that I can and not expect them to give me everything they can to work through their shit and try to figure their stuff out and not affect me or our friend group or our relationship or whatever that way. And I think that is just a really important distinction that I can understand where you've been through or what you've been through and where you've been. And expect you to get better, expect you to continue to evolve and develop the tools to operate in our social space in a way that is conducive to both of us.
Yeah, if I was ever in a place where my friends were like talking about, a less desirable quality that I may have, and they're giving it a pass by saying, oh, that's just Emily, that means that my friends don't think I'm capable of growing and evolving and I'm now just staying here. That fucking sucks. Like, if your friends have to give you a pass for your behavior, or your loved ones have to give you a pass for your behavior because you don't have the inner drive or ability to grow past that, like, and we're talking things like stubbornness or ignorance or lack of self-awareness, like those things they are not fixed qualities. But if it's so strong within you that your friends think it's a fixed quality, like that's just you problem. That's a literal you problem.
Yeah. I mean, the cliche with coaches, right? So, I've been accused of, you and I have talked about it, right? Like I can be hypercritical, and not in a mean way.
I was about to say, and this is not just me like pumping you up, you're just the most observant person I've ever met. So you observe everything, and by observing everything, you also like see everything. You see people's potentials. You see all of the things that they do. Like when I say that Chris is the most behaviorally observant person that I have ever met, like nothing slides past him ever. Like I could blink differently and he'd be like, you don't normally blink like that. What's wrong? Like you're just very observant. And so, and you're the most observant person I've ever met. You are the straightest shooter I've ever met. And you also see people's potential more than I've ever met. So I think when you combine all of those three, when you're holding somebody to a standard or something they've expressed to you wanting to do or like whatever, it could be easy for you to be seen as hypercritical because of all of the different moving parts that you see and just the directness with which you communicate it.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
You're like an eagle.
There we go. Yeah, I mean, obviously, like the observative nature of me comes from just having to be very, very aware of my surroundings because they could switch up on me at any moment. But this like being very, very in tune with what's happening around me comes from obviously that strong fear of abandonment, people leaving and stuff like that. And so I have that thing in my head where it's like if a behavior, right? Every time I interact with somebody, my brain is caching that, right? Random access memory into the hard drive. This person's file, everything's stored in there. And so when they do something, say something, breathe in a way that doesn't fit the algorithm my brain has worked out for them, alarms go off. And it's like, it doesn't know why, but it's like, pay attention, pay attention, pay attention. This person, something's different, right? But like I said, on the flip side of that, I think the most of all my people, right? I have lots of people. I think the most of all of them. And I don't think I've ever been more disappointed in my life than when I watch the people I love, quote unquote, underachieve. And when I say underachieve, I don't want that to come off like a dickish way of like they're not doing well enough. I think there's people I've grown up with, people in my family, people in relationships where it's I'm a salesman. I'm not going to put something in your head. I'm going to listen to you talk, and then I'm going to keep reiterating what you say back to me. So if you tell me your dream is to open up a foster center for dogs, if you tell me your dream is to own a Ferrari, if you tell me your dream is to vacation in Brazil, and then I see you do shit that's out of alignment with that, I'm going to tell you because I love you. I'm going to tell you, hey, like maybe try, maybe, whatever, right? Like I think that's one of those things where I get it because I'm also not a super verbally, at least in speaking, right? A feedback person that's going to keep like, reaffirming and saying things. I do like to write. I'm back into writing and stuff like that. But, it's one of those things where because I'm not that person who's also saying, I'm so proud of you and I'm so this of you and I love you and I appreciate you. I'm not a person who's always doing that. I'm working on getting better at it.
I've definitely got better
at it.
100%.
I'm light years better. I know that. But I mean, still getting better, but I'm not a person who's naturally that way. Those situations typically make me mildly uncomfortable for some whatever reason.
And then there's me where I'm like,
right, exactly, which also makes me mildly uncomfortable. And so I get how a person receiving the constant like feedback or critique could feel like I'm just riding them. But to the analogy I was going to make earlier, like the person you don't want to be on a team is the person the coach never talks to, because that means whatever you're doing, that's all he expects of you. That's all he thinks that you can do. And at no matter what level, are you perfect? You always have something to get better at. You always have something to improve on. Very, very similar to life. So when your partner, when your friends, when they stop speaking to you about things that, hey, maybe there's some conflict here. Hey, maybe we can do better here. Maybe this, maybe that. You stop having those dialogues about progression in life, in whether it's in emotional maturation or, otherwise, it's because wherever you are, they think that's what you're capable of, right? That's what they think is what you did. Like if they don't bring, hey bro, like you just really kind of offended me the other day, or hey man, you really hurt my feelings the other day. They don't think that you're capable of remedying that. They don't think you're capable of circumnavigating that process within you and becoming something more or better. And that should be a super shitty feeling, right? Because the eventuality of it is they reposition you in their life if they don't remove you completely. It happens in relationships, it happens in business, it happens in friendships. Like, I think that for me, I always care to see the people I love live to their fullest potential. Not for me, right? Like it's actually very rare that I come to a person. I think that if you ask my last partner, if you ask the partner before her, they will always tell you the thing. The dishes, cleaning up after, like the cleaning, like that's the things I would ask for me. But yeah, I was definitely hard on them, and I say hard like relatively, like in a way of like pushing them to achieve the things they told me they wanted to achieve. And I probably didn't do it the right way. I definitely could have gotten better with maybe tact or the way that I approached those, or the way that I coupled them with the reminders of how awesome and special I believed them to be then and now. It always came from a place of like, I see exactly what you want in you, and I want to continue to encourage you to do the things in alignment with achieving that.
Well, I think, for one, you're a projector, so you just see things. You're welcome for teaching you that.
Okay.
No, but I think too, like, and I have now obviously experienced this being observed by you. It can be very uncomfortable because I think a lot of times we convince ourselves that we haven't done or gotten or become XYZ thing because of something outside of us. Versus when you have somebody like a partner who is arguably the closest up person to you in your life, say like, actually no, here's the gaps that I see in how you're showing up, what you're doing, how you're spending your money, how you're spending your time, XYZ, that are preventing you from that thing. It's very uncomfortable because there's now nowhere left to hide.
Right.
You are like a naked crab. You are just like, oh, and you couldn't face that or didn't want to face that in yourself, but you just had somebody that knows you very, very well and lives very up close to you point it out. So you know it's apparent and you know it's there and you know it's real, and somebody else knows it too. And that feels just like, ugh, if you weren't ready for that.
Yeah. No, I mean, I get that. I've had those come to Jesus moments where someone perceived something that I had suspicion was there, and you're just developing that suspicion and trying to figure out your way around it. And when someone else presents it, you're like, oh fuck, this is more apparent than I thought it was, which is really discomforting, obviously. But I think that's also the important piece in a relationship. And I can definitely own the fact that I'm sure that I didn't always create the most comfortable space because of the way that I would carry myself, or the way that I would, even like I've been told the way I process is alarming and intimidating. Like, because I don't dwell, I don't sit and sulk. And so other people feel like they have to get over it. They have to move quickly through things.
Yeah.
And I understand that, like, that could create a space that is uncomfortable to process in if you feel like the person is just waiting for you to get over it. And I don't want people to feel that way. It's just one of those things where, like, I know that's how I've always been, and
Right.
I'm trying to give myself more space. And also, I'm pretty sure that's also probably just how I am.
Well, I think for you, like, and this is just where like people process things differently. Like, I think part of how you process things, especially challenging things, is like you need to do something. Like, you need to get up and you need to clean, or you need to like do a task, or you need to like be physically doing, like, you can't just sit and just like I've never ever seen you do that when you're processing something challenging. Like, you have to get up and do something and like mobilize that thing. Whereas other people may process things by being still, by sitting in bed and crying and doing this and doing that, like in a more stationary way. And neither one is wrong or right, good or bad. It's just very different. And to the person that is the more like still stationary processor, seeing somebody get up and do things, that thought is so completely inaccessible to them to do that, that in their minds, for somebody to be able to do that means that they are over it. And then to somebody like you that processes things in motion and like by doing, and like in that kind of, whether it's tactile or kinesthetic or whatever kind of way, to see somebody be completely immobile and process things, that almost makes you anxious, because the thought of you doing that is so inaccessible to you in your brain that you're like, if I were to do that, I would completely fall apart. And so I need to actually distance myself from that further because I could not be there. And it's just different ways of processing. And again, neither one is wrong or right. I think where people run into problems is when they don't have the ability to communicate how they process to the people that are watching them process. And then also, too, if the people that they are processing with can't empathize with that form of processing.
Yeah. I mean, I think that obviously sheds a lot of light on like possibly like what's going on in there. I know for me, I use logic to get myself up and moving, right? I think that my brain goes, okay, this is a current problem in my life, and if I don't have the answers to the problem, well, I won't find them sitting on the couch. But what I will find on the couch is, self-pity, sadness, depression, and things that can kind of offset that until I find this solution. Is productivity. Is okay, hey, listen, my house is dirty, I'll clean it. Hey, I haven't been to the gym yet, I'm going to go. Hey, I have work to do. I have clients to invest in. I have people who need me. And so if I go and I take care of those things. I check those things off my list. I have this sense of productivity and, just completion, achievement. Then, eventually my answers will come, in whatever form they're going to come. And I think when asked, I probably just stop because I was probably just unaware of like the need to move. I stop at my rationale, which is just like, well, this person did this. I can't do much about it. So I'm not going to do anything about it. And I'm going to keep going. Or, Albert Einstein, he's one of my favorite historical characters, said a lot of cool things. One of his quotes that are one of my favorites is, a wise man sees what is, not what should be. And I think that's really important. I grew up as a black minority in inner city, Akron, not a place people want to visit. And there's a lot of things I thought should be, growing up. There's a lot of things I saw my peers get to do that I didn't get to do. A lot of experiences I didn't get to have. And back then, of course, you think it's not fair. This sucks. Why am I've been working since I was 12. I paid my way for all this different stuff. I had to study the FAFSA while other kids are studying for ACTs, right? I had to know how to fill that out. My parents didn't do it for me. College visits, I did those alone. These are all things that I took care of by myself. It taught me a lot. It built resilience. It showed me how to work through really, really hard things. And in all of that, though, like, it did just reduce a lot of stuff to just the brass tacks of the situation, right? Like, because that's all that you can truly rely on. The minute that you insert emotion into something, it complicates it. Emotion is a tool that can be used to add color to a picture that you're seeing. But the minute that emotion detracts from the image, the minute that the colors get all fucking sporadic and things start looking more Picasso than Leonardo, you don't get to move forward, right? You have to express yourself, but now what do you do with this, right? You can't take this to someone and say, this is how I feel. They go, I feel like this is interpretive, right? Like you don't really, you can't get something back. But if you take the fucking, take a Da Vinci to someone, take, the ceiling to someone, they go look at it and they're like, okay, like this Sistine Chapel, I see what's going on here. They look happy, they don't. Like, you can really, see what's going on there. And I think that is important. Like, there's something to be said about, hey, yeah, I want to provide the space for my people to process their shit in whatever way they need to. And if that means, I have to just shut the fuck up and hang out on the couch, like, I'll do that. And also I need you to tell me that, like, I'm a natural, like, as most men, I'm a natural problem solver. I'm a fixer. When you come to me, if I see a solution that will make you stop crying, right, that will literally solve this problem because I love you so much and I want to stop the tears from flowing, I'm going to present it. Like, it goes against everything inside of me not to be like, let me help you. But then getting better at being told I don't really want help right now. I would just love it if you sat and put your arm around me, or I'd love it if we sat and just picked up the controllers and played video games, or whatever, right? I just want to bullshit and kind of just chill, not really try to think about this actively. I can receive that now, and I think that is a really important piece. But you need to be as that person who needs to just chill, that doesn't want to do anything, doesn't want to fix anything, to articulate that to somebody, because without that person's going to do their default, right? Which is inherently trying to fix something. And without getting too long-winded, like, my point in all of this is that I view experience as opportunity to gain lenses, right? I don't know if anyone out there, if you're a millennial, you probably grew up with the movie Spy Kids. There's a scene where Junie has these fucking glasses and he presses the button and like 15 fucking monocles all come out. But that's how I view life. Like, that's how I view the situations, and you can choose to add those different lenses to the way you see things. It doesn't change what you're seeing, but it does give you an alternative perspective to the same landscape. I imagine sitting and looking over like where's Waldo books, right? And you're trying to find this fucking guy in these glasses and the striped shirt, and it seems like it should be apparent, and the other person is trying to show you because they see it so easily because it's their Waldo, right? And you just keep staring at it and you don't see it, and maybe you flip the next page and you find it, next page you find it, but you keep coming back and you cannot find it. But when you do find it, it does present an opportunity to gain a lens, and now it's actually really hard to see the situation without that lens.
Okay. I gotta resituate. I can't not be turned towards you.
No, I was wondering that earlier. People are going to watch the video and go, look at him. Look at how he's like positioned away from her. And I was almost
I
comment.
guarantee you the body language is going to be analyzed 100%.
Oh, yeah, no, it's funny, though, because I was even going to comment on the fact that obviously, like, I'm not, like, outwardly affectionate. I'm still working on that, too. Getting better at it.
You've gotten so much better at it.
I get better at it. It's one of those things where it's like, yeah, I don't know, man. It's something everyone has always said. Like, oh, like, he's not a touchy person, da-da-da-da. And it's like, it's funny the things that you learn as you continue to, like, self-observe. And I think that that's the crux of everything that I've been saying, is that the more that you try to microanalyze the external for the reasons why you have internal feelings, the more confused and lost you'll be.
Yeah.
Because it's all internal, right?
Yeah.
You know, I stand by the idea that no one can make you feel something you don't already feel. No one can make you believe something that you're not willing to believe. Like, people have shown these things time and time and time again. So when we want to focus on the external, allow ourselves to believe that somehow, some way, someone or something else put something in me, made me feel a way, made me think a way, chipped away at my self-worth. And I'm like, you can only feel less worthy if you're open to feeling less worthy. But if you feel like you're the hottest shit on the planet, trust me, no one can convince you you're not if you truly believe it.
Yeah. This is where I'll add an addendum, since you added an addendum to mine earlier. I think...
Tit for tat.
Eye for an eye. I think it's like boiling water, or like the temperature of water, right? Like, if your starting self-worth is room temperature, you could put a handful of ice cubes in and it becomes significantly colder relatively quickly. If you're boiling water and you add that same handful of ice cubes in, the temperature doesn't change nearly as much or is in as palpable of a way. So it's like, if you have a baseline of my self-worth is like a boiling pot of water, one ice cube from somebody, well, you know, not going to make a huge difference. You know, 2 ice cubes, probably not going to make a huge difference. Your level of self-worth is going to melt that. If you have a starting baseline of like cold water and somebody puts 1 ice cube in there, it's going to feel like a lot colder because you already had a low baseline. So it just kind of depends on where that starting baseline is. You put enough ice in boiling water, it's not going to be boiling water anymore. But it's a lot harder to cool down boiling water than room temperature water.
So for those of you listening, what she essentially just did was give you an illustration for exactly what I just said. Because...
Well, no, you're saying nobody could take that from you. Theoretically, like...
No.
Like, hold on.
It's your analogy. I'm gonna use your metaphor.
Here we go.
You just said if you have room temperature water, cooler water, if you add ice cubes to it, it will get colder, right? You know, if someone's baseline is room temperature, you can take them down a notch by adding ice cubes. I don't refute that because it actually is in alignment with what I said. The coolness is already there. Your relative lack of self-worth, value, belief is present if you're not boiling, right? If you don't believe in yourself and you're kind of like, I'm okay. And then someone goes, no, actually, you're trash. It's like, well, yeah, but you already didn't believe yourself to be that great anyway.
Well, no, I think what I'm saying is like in the extreme examples, right? Like of take somebody that maybe is like a very, very confident person, but then they just get chipped away at consistently for a prolonged period of time, then potentially that level of self-worth might deteriorate. I think that's more of what I'm saying is like, it's not that no one can take it from you. It's that it takes significantly more effort for that to be taken from you.
Yeah, I guess I still push back on that, and I say, so then so for everyone listening, I do not think that I'm an attractive human being.
Which is so fucked up.
No, but I mean I don't think that I'm super attractive. I know that I'm attractive, but I don't believe that I am. I think those are different,
Mm-hmm.
right? I know that I am because of the attention I get. I know
Mm-hmm.
that I am because how many times I've been told it. But I do not look in the mirror in a world where no other human being was present.
Mm-hmm.
We couldn't speak, we couldn't write, whatever. We just didn't exist with one another. I would not go, I'm objectively attractive,
Mm-hmm.
right? I think that I'm a good-looking guy. I think I'm not ugly, right? You know, I don't go around thinking like I'm this, I'm that, you know. I say that because there's a part of me that can go, okay, like I can empathize and understand, like when I see like women with their friends and, oh my God, this makes me look so fat. Oh my God, this makes me look so ugly. And their friends go, no, you're beautiful. You don't understand. You're so gorgeous, right? Every girl I've dated, I've watched her belittle herself, and I watched her friends and me try to go, no, absolutely fucking not. Like, you are nuts. Like, you are this. Like, you look at this. You are this. But they have the same complaints
Mm-hmm.
again and again. Each time, every time you go out, they're analyzing themselves in front of the mirror, because it's not what the world is telling them. It is what they are telling themselves. And no matter how many compliments we give them, I'd almost feel like the compliments are less adding and
Mm-hmm.
more just keeping them afloat. Because maybe without the compliments, they would, spiral into, self-hate or whatever, and truly fall off the cliff of that, beyond, I don't look good in this outfit, to like, I just don't look good in general, or da 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 da, whatever. So maybe the compliments are doing their job there, but I think that is a clear illustration of the fact that those compliments, if those compliments are merely buoys, then like insults can't have that much of an effect on our mental if it can be that strong. If it can latch on to something with that much of a stranglehold of self-belief of like, I am this, I am that, I am this, I am that. But I think where we don't give enough credit is like, okay, this person made me feel really small. Not necessarily because, but just for sake of the fact that I don't have another word for it right now, but because a part of me already felt small. A part of me
Mm-hmm.
was fighting to be big. And in my efforts to be big, I was met with someone who did things that made me feel small.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, your relative baseline was you were trying to not feel small because you already felt small, and then someone added to that. Someone gave a voice to your own insecurities. Someone gave a voice to the things that you were already battling, and that sucks, right? However, if I feel gargantuan, I don't think that anyone's opinions could come in and make you feel any less gargantuan than you
Mm-hmm.
feel, because that is your own like self. If anything, you'd feel so big that when someone said something to you, it would just sound like a farce. It would sound silly. It would sound like you sound bitter. You're trying to hurt me,
Mm-hmm.
right? It wouldn't sound like something that came in any level of validity because of your own self-belief. Like if you are out there and you're listening and you disagree with me, that is 100% okay. But I would ask you if you've ever really believed in something. Do you think it would have been easy for someone to come and convince you to believe otherwise, no matter how many times they knocked at your door?
Dramatic pause. Fair enough.
Just saying.
That's pretty good. That's pretty good. All right. As we wrap this up, I have one more question, because you have a large emotional side, and we've talked about like how when you were a kid, like it was out a little bit more, then it was repressed more, kind of hyper logical leaning, and then you've come into a space, in the last year and since I've known you, where your ability to process emotions, your level of emotional intelligence, your level of emotional maturity, your level of like acceptance of emotions within yourself, et cetera, has grown significantly. What would you, and I would assume that there are a lot of men and women, but I think for men it's definitely a lot different, that either resonate with that or are still in that kind of secondary space of like that hyperlogical leaning, even though there's like a large emotional kind of volcano bubbling up underneath, that want to get to, the place that you're in now where you're accepting that more, growing in that more, etc. what would you say have been the most important tools, things, resources, people, practices, etc., that you've had in that journey?
Mm. So, as men, especially, it is normal, especially just with society and the way that it works, to assign a level of value to your life, to your existence, your presence in people's orbit, to the value that you bring, tangible value, but tangible value that you bring. So whether that person is telling you consistently that they value you, or with family, you're taking care of them, you provide for your kids, for your partner, etc. And without those things, I think it gets kind of tough for us to assign a level of, definitely a high level of value to our lives. Um, so I had to undo that. I had to try to unravel the idea that I needed to be something special. I should say, I'll rephrase that I needed to do something special, something unique, something irreplaceable, to be irreplaceable, to be unique and special, um, as opposed to just being, like just being Chris, just existing in your space and allowing those people around you to experience you in your trueness. Um, I think that realizing that that could be enough for people is definitely like one of the first steps, and that is not an easy step to take. I read lots of books. The Way of the Superior Man was a book I resisted a while because I think honestly it's just not a great title. But David Dida does a really good job, I think, at unraveling the parts of, like, the meta parts of the masculine. And without getting too much into the masculine and the feminine, because I believe that those words are becoming
Abused.
yes, to put it nicely.
That could be the next podcast.
Yeah. It's one of those things where I was able to kind of like really, really reflect on the whys within inside me. Like, why do I do this? Why do I respond that way? And in that self care, that self reflection, I stopped paying attention to others, right? My whole life had been, okay, how can I do this for that person? Do this for this person? Do this so this person will give me this. Do this so this. Like, if you're doing something for yourself, usually it starts with doing something for someone else, and so you're consistently trying to shape shift and morph into something for whatever puzzle that you need to fit in that moment. But instead of looking at the outside puzzle, looked at my own inside puzzle, and like, wait a second, my own pieces don't even fit together, right? Like, I got mismatches everywhere. So when I started focusing on that, I was able to assign a level of value due to the investment of time I put into myself. So when I showed up, for my friends, for my loved ones, for family, for my future partner, it was one of those things where it was like, well, I know the way that I'm showing up, there's an investment behind this. There's a tangible investment behind this. So if anything, I kind of took the way I operated and inverted it in a way that would allow me to undo it, if that makes sense. I needed tangible evidence that I was worthy. Well, I gave myself my own tangible evidence that I was worthy with this process. In that way, I didn't need to look for it from someone else. So that was definitely step one, and the most pivotal and I think impactful step. Beyond that, I think that the people around you are really important too. I have a really, really, like my brother. His name is Mario. Shout out Mario if you listen. I think having men around you that open themselves up and lend themselves to that emotional space, so you can have those contextual conversations that are not pretty, and they're not, oh yeah bro, da, 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 or not, it doesn't matter, or don't be a pussy, or that's what, when you get out of that space, and you can go to your homie and be like, hey man, like this just kind of sucks and doesn't feel good, and I don't want it to feel this way, or I feel little, or I feel pathetic, and they go, nah dude, like, not only are you not little and pathetic, but I feel you, like I've been there, or I'm there right now. I've sat and I've cried with Mario. We've cried into the same pillow. We've held each other. It's one of those things where I think that that connection with men, especially as a man, is really important. Um, so it kind of helps you like balance those energies within self, because you stop prematurely reflecting on the things you feel, because you're not judging them before you feel them, right? The minute you feel jealousy, the minute, like I have friends that like, oh, well, that made me feel kind of self-conscious, but then they immediately talk themselves out of it because they feel pathetic for feeling self-conscious. So they go, well, I shouldn't feel that way. It's like, but why? Why shouldn't you feel that way? Who told you shouldn't? And I think that that is important in men-to-men conversations, to have someone kind of reaffirm, like, nah, dude, like, feel that shit. Like, that's okay. And there's reasons why. I can tell you why you're not only allowed to feel that, but also why, in our men logic, it makes sense that you would feel this way. So I think, yeah, if I could give two big pieces to people listening, and I think this works for men and women, with women, having been around a lot of women, whether it be romantically, friendships, familial, I think the only difference that I would make, and maybe it's like a 2 sub B, is in the people around you, is making sure that you have people around you that will encourage you to act on your higher self. I do think that, this is a man talking, so I will put that caveat in there, don't crucify me, but I do think that there is a tendency, because of the history, right? And as a minority, I can definitely understand this, that the pendulum swing is that, if you've been downtrodden, if you've been forgotten, if historically a group has been marginalized or othered, it's normal to kind of rally, and not just rally to a level of equalness, but almost rally to a level of like vengeance. Like, we have to not just take back what we are owed, but we want more. We're gonna knock them down. So you oftentimes run into less of these like female support groups and more of what I would probably call a female mob, where like it's just a gaggle of girls talking and trying to really understand. Like, I will admit, it's from a place of trying to make the person or people they're trying to comfort feel less alone, because no one wants to feel alone, and they know what that feels like. So they want to go, oh my God, like, fuck them, or fuck him, fuck that person, this person, they're terrible people, they're this, they're that. And I think that doesn't really do much for the elevation of self, or the learning process, or the processing process. So that would be the one thing that I do. I'm not trying to single out women. I'm sure there are guys out there too. I think it's just one of those things that I've noticed very much so over the years, that even like my female friends, if I go and tell them something, their first response is like, I'm just so disappointed in her, or, oh my God, I can't believe he would do that. It's like, let's gang up on them so you don't feel alone. Whereas with my guy friends, it is kind of like maybe a surprise or astonishment situation, but not necessarily a demonization of the other person. Like, they don't feel like they have to jump on this like bandwagon of hate. And I think that is a really important piece, because I don't think that getting lost in that hateful space is conducive to like the elevation of oneself. Like, it's going to keep tearing you down, because it's going to stick inside of you until you learn how to love it, till you learn how to appreciate what's happening inside of you for what it is, and not what you're trying to morph it to be, so that you can pretend to feel a certain way.
It's a good answer, babe.
I do what I can.
You did a good job.
I do what I can. I don't know. Do you have a sign off for this?
I do. Oh, hold on. Let the host host.
Host it then, dude. I'm just watching this time, and the camera's gone out on us 3 times, and this is the first installment. So I guess it's not going too bad.
No, it's going pretty solid. So the question I ask everyone, it's based on the name of the show that you don't know. But I promise you guys, he's a really supportive boyfriend. But what is something in your life that you are working on embodying right now?
That's a good question.
Isn't it? I'm a good host.
Yeah, I'm glad your show's not called The Empowerment or whatever, because I don't know what I'm trying to empower right now. But embody, I think that's a good question. I would say commitment to self. I have a lot of things that I want to accomplish, a lot of things that I want to do, and a lot of them have to do with the way I want to show up for other people, and in business, and in just authentic space, right? The stepping into oneself, right? Being able to put myself out there so that others might, be able to take something from that, is something that's really important to me. I've struggled with how to do that, whether it's posting on social media or it's, I don't know, creating some sort of like group. I don't know what it looks like just yet, but I have these things that I want to do, and I have not done them yet. They are on a running list of to-dos, and I always come back to like, I'm tired. And then it's funny because I was just on a podcast with, David, a friend, and I mentioned like working for Stryker, and I remember the days where I used to work 70-hour weeks and, operate on 4 hours of sleep. And it's not that I would suggest that to anybody, but I do think that most people would benefit from understanding what like really like hard work actually is, because most people don't know what that is. And I reflect on that and I go, okay, you are tired, and also you can still do this. There are things that you can still accomplish if there are the things you actually want to get done. So hold yourself accountable. It's funny because I typically don't find any issue with committing to others and showing up for others. But, I negotiate with myself often, and I want to negotiate less.
I love that. I'm excited for people to get more of you because they need it.
I guess.
Fuck up. You're uncomfortable, aren't you?
All right. I'm actually pretty comfortable. Couch potting is nice.
All right, so this is the last question. This is your chance. Plug away. Where can people find you? Where can they consume your content? How can they work with you? All of the things.
Yeah, so obviously I'm a fitness coach. You can find me.
I don't necessarily know if that was obvious from this podcast.
Well, I guess if anyone has known who we were before we got on here,
fair.
they would know that. So, but you can find me on Instagram at Classic Chris, classic with a CK, because I'm just that sick. Actually, no, classic with a C was taken. But also my company, run by myself and Bryce Calvin, Progressive Performance P2. We work with a plethora of individuals. I'm also a strong advocate for mental health, especially in the men's space. We have a handle that you can find us at. It's called It's Mental 614, just as it's sounds there. 614 is the numeric. But yeah, no, I love connecting with new people. I love meeting people from different backgrounds, different ideas, and I also love talking anything not numbers. I do numbers all day. So if you have ideas on psychology, emotion, aliens, let's talk about it. I'm waiting.
All right, cool. Well, thanks for coming on, babe.
Thanks for having me in the comfort of our home.
Our home.
Peace.